Welcome to the second episode of the Brutus Poker Vlog. We're back in Georgetown, Texas again for the round and round game. In this game, it's a 1-2 No Limit Holdem round, followed by a 1-2 5-to-go Pot Limit Omaha game. In this game, you can buy in between $100 and $500, but you also can match the big stack, buying in for up to 80% of whatever the biggest stack on the table has. And that becomes relevant today as one player in this game runs very hot, building a giant stack, and we actually add up in the middle of the session to try to win a big pot against this player. We start off tonight with $500. We're playing 5-handed to start, just like last week. After a pretty uneventful start to the night, we pick up ace, 5, 5, deuce in early position. I raise it to $10. Both blinds end up calling, and we see a flop. The flop comes all diamonds, and the action is checked to me. So I bet $10, hoping to get paid by some lower flushes, or even some two-pair type hands. The big blind decides to raise me back to $40, to either keep me honest or make a play at the hand. I decide there's no point in raising him to scare off any weaker hands, and if he wants to keep bluffing, I'll let him keep doing it. The turn is pretty scary. It's a 6 of spades, and he comes out betting again for $40. Now there's no point in raising here. He's either got me beat or he's bluffing, and I call. So we see the river, and it's a pretty safe card here. It's an ace of spades, and he makes a smallish bet of $45 into this large pot. So I quickly make the call and show my hand. He shows a jack-high flush. So it turns out he actually had a fairly strong hand here and was making a smallish bet to control the pot. A little bit later, I pick up king, jack, 7, 8 double suited, and I make the call under the gun. I don't want to over-represent this hand. I'm playing out of position, so no need to make the pot get bigger. It is raised by a player in late position, and another player calls, so I make the call. We see the flop, and it's as good as it gets. Queen, 10, 9, rainbow. So I come out betting $35, hoping to get some action from some players that might have a draw that haven't gotten there already, or even some sets. And the player who raised makes the call, and everyone else folds. So we see the turn, and it's a 2 of hearts. So again, the hand is very safe for me, and I come out betting $70, expecting to get called by very good hands, very good draws, and I need to build this pot as much as I can. And the river comes 7 of spades, and this is a pretty good card for me because it helps anyone who has an 8-6 also get there. So I come out betting. Now I do block the 8, and it's very unlikely that he's going to have much, but it does look like I could be trying to buy the pot, but unfortunately he makes the fold. So we pick up a really nice pot here, $400 pot, pretty early to get back the session on track. Back to Hold'em, and we pick up pocket queens. So it's great to hit a premium hand, and 2 players limp, followed by a raise in the cutoff to $15. So I re-raise it back to $45. The limpers fold, and the cutoff makes the call. Now he doesn't have a lot behind, maybe about $100, so looking to get it in on the flop, as long as we don't have anything too scary. We don't get the ideal flop. It comes with a king, but I feel comfortable betting the player all in here. He's going to call with a lot of worse hands, and might as well get the money in while we can. He shows ace, queen of hearts, and we get a scary card of the 6 of hearts, but fortunately the 10 of spades hits in the river, and we take home a pretty nice pot. Short time later, we pick up a pretty mediocre hand in Omaha. 7, 4, 3 deuce with 7, 3 of spades. 3 players limp, and I call from the small blind, looking to see a flop that's pretty favorable for me. Flop comes 5 deuce jack, rainbow, and I check. This is a pretty decent flop for me, hitting a straight draw. Now I check, hoping to keep the pot small, and the big blind bets $10. A late position player calls, so I make the call to see the turn. We get the perfect turn, the ace of hearts. It gives us the nut straight and lets us bet into the player who originally bet $50. Now he makes the call. He makes the call, and we're off to see the river, which comes an unfortunate 2 of hearts. Now I decide to bet here, hoping to get some value from a hands like Ace Jack, who might call. Unfortunately, he raises very quickly the minimum value of 150, and I decide to make the laydown. I don't think he's going to be bluffing here with anything worse than a flush, and I have the deuce, so it's just really unlikely he's overvaluing 3 of a kind. The opponent turns over pocket 5s for a flopped set and river full house, so pretty good fold here. In this Omaha hand, we pick up ace, deuce, queen, 3 with the ace suited. There's a $10 straddle on, and I make the call. No need to raise this hand. 3 other players call, and we see a flop. We flop the nuts. We flop the wheel. And this is a pretty draw-heavy board, and there's a lot of cards that could actually come and ruin my hand. So I come out and I bet $50. And I end up getting the button and the big blind calling. So this is a really good spot for us. The turn is as safe as it gets. It's a jack of spades, and it's checked to me again. So I bet 150 here. I am fine if they fold, but if they call me, that's not a problem as well. The big blind is pretty low stacked and decides to call, and she actually shows ace 8 with ace of 8 of hearts and a 5-4. So she's got 3 pair and a flush draw, so I actually have to dodge quite a bit here. Obviously, she's never going to get away from this hand. It's unfortunate for her that she's running to the nuts, and I hit the 8 on the end. She ends up making 4 pair. Unfortunately, for her, that's no good. Back to Hold'em, we pick up Jack 10 of diamonds in the small blind. The cutoff raises $10, and I make the call. The big blind also ends up calling, and we see a flop. It comes 9-6-3 with 2 diamonds, so a pretty good flop for us here. I check to the raiser, who then bets $10. The big blind calls after I call, so we end up going 3 ways to the turn. And I pick a pretty favorable turn up here in the 8 of hearts. So this goes in the straight draw and the flush draw, so I come out betting $40. I don't sense a lot of strength from either player. And they end up thinking for a little bit and folding, so happy to take this pot down without actually even making a hand, but having a pretty strong draw, good opportunity to be aggressive and win a pot. Take a quick break from filming to actually play an online tournament for free roll at Nitrogen Sports. Now, I like playing at Nitrogen because it accepts Bitcoin as payment and uses it for betting. So when I actually win, I win Bitcoin. So while we're playing at Georgetown Poker Club, we end up cashing second place in the free roll for 15 millibitcoin, which is approximately $875 at the prices today. So nice to profit at the table while we're already profiting at the table. I'll have a link in my profile for an affiliate account so you can join in the action at Nitrogen Sports. All right, back to the live action at the tables. Back to Omaha. Is there any greater feeling than getting double suited aces in a straddled pot? So I pot it up to $35. And yes, there is something greater. Someone repots it to 120. Now this player actually tried to go all in, didn't understand the pot limit rule, and it got back to me, and so I obliged him by putting him all in for a little bit more than what he had in there. He flips over his hand, and he's got king, king, queen, 10, and that's actually a pretty decent hand to go against me. And he also has the king, queen of hearts. But let's just see the flop and see what happens, see if these aces hold.
I like my chances too.
Holy
Not no
shit.
more.
Not anymore, man. Holy shit, man.
We hit quads again, so it's a pretty easy game when you hit quads. He actually was drawing live to the Royal, and I stopped looking and didn't want to see if he actually hit it. But yeah, pretty nice pot. Always easy to get it all in with aces versus kings, and they hold. Back to Hold'em, we pick up pocket Judy's, and there's a straddle for $5, and I raise it up to $15. Folds around, and the straddle calls, and we see a flop. And it's a pretty good one for pocket jacks. After it's checked in the dark, I flop top set. Now there's not really a lot going on this board. I don't think I'm going to get much action, so I check behind. The under the gun player who straddled checks again. I bet $20, and he very quickly folds. So don't make much, but it's good to hit another set. Going back to Omaha, we're playing five-handed now. There's a very aggressive player at the table that has busted a few of the players, and we have some open seats. Now he's been hitting a lot of hands, chasing down, being very aggressive, taking things down during the last hour that we weren't recording. We managed to actually bust the player on his very first hand at the table with bottom two pair that we didn't get recorded. So this makes this hand a little bit more interesting. He's sitting on about $2,500. Now a couple of players have added on up to this point, including myself. So I added $600 to my stack during this session and just before this hand. So I'm sitting on about a $1,200 stack. So we have a pretty deep pot going here. Now I pick up king, king, 8 deuce with 3 clubs in a straddle that I'm straddling. And this makes it a little bit tricky to play here. It's not the best hand with kings, but it's certainly better than most of the hands people have here. So jumping into the action, it's limped by this very aggressive player that's in the cutoff, followed by a call by the player in the big blind. He completes the $5. And it comes to me, and I really like my chances here and decide to pot it up to $40. Now both players decide to come along at this point, and we see a flop. We had a very favorable flop, flopping top set. So this is another set we hit tonight. We have a backdoor flush draw along with it, and this is a pretty draw-heavy board that could hit a lot of hands. I come out betting $100. Now this is something where I had a couple of different options. Given this player was very aggressive, I thought I had 2 courses really. I could check, and I could likely get a bet from him, and I could check raise him and possibly take down a pot or build a big pot for the turn. The other option I contemplated and decided to go for was making the bet of $100, hoping that he would raise me. And if he raised me, then it becomes a very easy repot situation, and we can get stacks in with top set and backdoor flush draw. So I'm really, what I really want to avoid is checking through, letting him hit some type of gut shot for free, and not getting any money in the pot when I was ahead by so much. The player makes the call, and this is setting off a little bit of alarm bells. What could he have? He could have some type of straight draw. He could have a flush draw, and we get a very unfortunate turn card here, which is the 10 of clubs. Now it does give me a flush draw now to go with my hand, but it also makes a lot of straights that we're going for right here. So when I see this kind of card, I check. This allows him to continue bluffing with worse hands that he might fold, as well as limit the damage when he does have the straight in this situation. So I check. He pots it to me for $325. Now I don't think I can go anywhere here, especially with the backdoor flush draw. So I make the call and hope the board pairs, or hope we can hit that flush. The flush would especially be nice just because it's so hidden. We do get our wish. We get the jack of diamonds that comes on the river. So this completes the full house for us. Now the question comes, what do we do? How do we get him to put in his money here? So if he has the straight, I figure he's going to be inclined to call here if I bet. He doesn't want to get bluffed out of this pot. And if he has a missed draw like spades, I should probably check here and let him shove all in here, trying to bluff me off of it, thinking I don't really have much when I really have pretty much the nuts here. So I wasn't quite sure what to do here, but I figured I'm going to make the bet just in case he has the straight and is willing to pay off. If he did happen to have something that got to a two pair that turned into a boat, he's probably betting the river anyway. So I end up jamming in, and he curses and says that he has a bunch of spades and had a ton of outs to get there, and makes the fold. So I really wish I would have checked this one, let him, give him the rope, let him do the damage himself. But we end up with a pretty massive pot here. The player ends up walking out, staying out in the parking lot for the rest of the session. So I think we may have tilted him, especially when we showed him the king 8 of clubs, making it look like we missed our flush. The very next hand, we pick up pocket kings again. This time they're not suited, and there's just a 2-9 dangler with them that is suited. It actually gets to the button who pots it after a few people limp. I make the call in the big blind. I don't want to raise this hand back. This is a very tight and straightforward player. I could be in a lot of trouble here. I'm out of position, so I just flat call. Two other players do call, and we go to the flop, which does come king high. Now there's two spades. I really don't have any backup here. This is a hand that's really strong right now, but very easily could get ugly. So I decided it's worth it to let him bet at it and try to take it down with a check raise. And I check, all the players check to the button, who then makes a pot-sized bet. Action folds to me, and I repot it to him, representing a very, very strong hand here. I expect to get called by maybe a lower set and maybe a pocket aces with ace suited of spades. But he gets back to the button, and he thinks about it for a second and tosses his hand in the muck and reveals he did have aces, just didn't have the right suit. And I show the kings to show that I hit a set 2 in a row. We're down to four-handed at this point. The one player who was winning big and lost that big pot has not been back. We're playing four-handed, and players actually decide we're going to just play Omaha for the rest of the night. Hope he comes back, and if not, we're going to probably stop playing pretty soon. And I pick up a pretty average hand in a straddle, a king 10, 10, 9 with no suits. And the action is checked to me, and I decide to just check. And we get a flop that's not too interesting. A jack 7-5 rainbow. The action just checks around, and I hit the 10 of hearts on the turn. This is a pretty good card here. The only thing that really got there was 8-9, and I happen to have a 9 in my hand, so that's pretty good. The player grabs a stack of chips, thinking they're red, and places them out, and realizes later that they're just $1 chips. And so at this point, the chips, he throws out the $5 bet, the minimum possible into this pot. I'm going to just raise him here. I think he's got a hand. I'm going to give him a chance to raise me. I just don't think he's got 8-9, and if he does, I've got some outs. So I raise him up to $25, and he makes the call. And the river comes a pretty safe card here. The river is the 6 of diamonds. So really not much got there that would have bet or called the raise. So I just make a $50 bet, hoping to get called by a 2-pair hand. Really, it's going to be hard for him to figure out that I have a set here. But he folds, and I show the set. One of the last hands of the night, I straddle again and pick up queen 4, 5, 6 with 4, 6 of clubs. So not an ideal hand. When the action checks to me, and I hit bottom pair. So really not a good board. They check to me. I'm going to make a stab at this one. So I bet $20. Small blind folds, but the big blind makes the call. Now this player in particular tends to try to look me up. He knows I'm capable of making bluffs. So I know a single barrel is not going to work on this guy very often. The turn comes, and it's another card that doesn't help me at all. It does bring in a gut shot for me, but it's the 8 of clubs. So I decide to fire it again after he checks to me, and then possibly make a third barrel bluff if I need to. When I bet $50, he folds pretty quickly, so I managed to steal one last pot on the night. The game starts to break, and we decide to cash out, and we have a really good session. So first off, we're in for $1,100 this time after we added on the $600, and we cash out for $1,984, giving us a profit of $884. We also end up cashing online for another $850, giving us a total session profit of $1,734. So overall, good night. Good night to be at the Georgetown Poker Club, and look forward to seeing anyone who wants to come play in this game on Thursday nights. We usually start about 6 o'clock. Look forward to talking to you all on episode 3. Thanks.